Hello, you kind people of the internet. Welcome to Project GEEKCast. My name is Josh Jones, and I'm here with my very good friend, Chris Glansman.
Hello.
And today we are talking about what will be known as the second best game of 2020, The Last of Us Part 2,
What's the first?
Bugsnax.
Oh,
Obviously. I mean, what could
you're
be
right.
better than what
I'm
could be better than
sorry. I
Bugsnax?
forgot. I forgot.
No, but seriously, we're talking about The Last of Us Part 2, which if you've been following this channel, you know that I'm obsessed with. Chris has to put up. Was also very excited for it, but he had to put up with my obsession. And it's finally been here for a couple weeks now. Chris and I are here to talk about the game. Um, I think that the start we should go with the gameplay because the story is like this whole beast of the topic, and there's been a lot of outrage on it. So, Chris, what was your take on the gameplay?
I've always been a fan of The Last of Us gameplay. It's
Really?
very much, it's very clean. I
Hmm.
think it's better than a lot of other gameplays or gameplays for a lot of other games. But like we talked about this during the God of War video.
Hmm.
Um, the controls in that are the combat's okay, but in
Why would
general,
you
the
hit?
controls are not clean.
Why would you ever hit circle to open stuff up or jump over things? It's ridiculous. You use X to jump and triangle to grab. It's easy as that. That's all I'm saying.
Not gonna get all the way into that. The only thing that I'm not a fan of
Hmm.
is like some of the bosses that become regular things because I'm bad at the game, okay?
That's
I'm bad at video games in general.
just because you suck.
Just because I suck. It's not a
That's
problem
your
with the game.
that's your
It's not a fault
complaint.
of the game.
Your complaint is I'm bad.
Yeah, that's my complaint. I'm
It's like
bad.
the Cuphead reviewer who couldn't make the jump in the tutorial section, and it was like this game is too hard. Did you see that?
Except yeah, except that is a little bit different. It's comparable, but I don't know how to say it exactly. I very much like the game. I like the gameplay. It's
Hmm.
fun. I like
Yeah.
the little puzzles to find the safes and to get into the secret rooms to get more supplements and crafting materials.
Yeah.
The only the only thing is sometimes the distribution of things that you get are not great. Like
Hmm.
of items. They are hard, everything is scarce, which is
Yeah.
fine. That's the point. But like I kept getting more and more fabric or cloth, and I could not find alcohol for the life of me.
Hmm.
Like there gets a point where it's all balanced for a long time, and then just kind of gets really lopsided. I don't know if you
Definitely.
experienced that, or if it's just me.
I didn't experience it that much. I did like make sure that whenever I got like an item or like when I maxed out on like my cloth or my alcohol or whatever, that I tried to like make something out of it. So I was constantly playing a game of let me like keep all my items at max capacity so that I can take in as much material as I possibly need. And that honestly became like one of my not my favorite parts of the game, but like it was something that I was constantly doing that like always excited me. I was like, ooh, I have to figure out which which item I need to like craft right now.
Yeah, I
Um,
try to do that as well.
yeah, but I totally agree with you. I think that Naughty Dog has like refined their gunplay and their gameplay in this game. I think the controls feel so tight and so smooth. I love like the amount of options that you have in the game. Like they have with they increased Abby and Ellie's verticality and their agility, so levels can go up really high now, and there are just so many like you can put like a silencer in your pistol. You have the bow. You have all these weapons you can use. So there's always a different way to approach an encounter, and if you wanted to, you could like just totally sprint away and like
Hmm.
not fight everyone. I always tried my best to like kill everyone as so I could go around and look for all my loot again. But sometimes I was like, I can't do this anymore. There's too many people. Let me just run and let me just get
Yep.
to safety. I do have I do have a couple complaints though. Um, for one, I hate that I still can't choose when I don't want to use my weapons. I think that's very annoying. And I think if I want to like save my machete for another fight, I should be able to and be able to just use my
Mm,
fists.
hmm.
Um, and then also sometimes I felt like the areas were just too big in general. Like I would frequently be in a fight and get lost and not know where exactly I was going or like where the exit was because I just had spun around so many times that I didn't know where I was. And it made searching for items more difficult. So I was like, did I go in that building already? and I go in and check like, oh no, I've already been in this one. This one was the one that connected through this back way through
Hmm.
into, and so it was just that became too complicated for me. But it was like brutal and disgusting in all the best ways.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments, not favorite moments, but like one of the most shocking or standout moments to me was when I had, the bow with the bomb on it, and there were two people who were coming up to me, and I drew the arrow and I shot it, and it blew both of them up, and I looked down at the guy, and like his legs were just completely off, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that was not something I needed to see. But like, I love that you put that detail in Naughty Dog. Like, I love that dismemberment was like a priority for your company. Um, so I did have fun, and the boss battles were amazing, and I definitely got to like put a shout out to the Rat King, who
Hmm.
was a very intense, very disturbing boss to fight. That was fun for me,
Yeah, it was quite gross.
wasn't it?
Uh,
It wasn't pleasant.
no, and I mean, it wasn't like it was one of the. It wasn't that hard. It wasn't even one of the hardest encounters for me.
Mm-mm.
It
No,
was
I
just
had to
kinda
praise you.
like some kind of scary. Just came out of nowhere that we'd never seen before.
It's a
That
big
was just
chungus.
the big chunk that then split into a smaller half that you had to worry about for a minute.
Yeah,
I don't know, and then it just ran away, and then you didn't worry about it anymore.
yeah. Until it pops out again.
So it pops out again, and you almost get wrecked. That was good.
I think it was fun. But now I think it's time that we go into the narrative, into the story of this game, which has garnered a lot of outrage.
Hmm.
So I guess let's talk about that. What did you see about outrage? Like, what do you think about the outrage, Chris? Is it warranted? Is it not warranted?
I see why people are kind of upset about parts of
Mm-hmm.
it. I haven't watched any videos. I've literally watched nothing about The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Oh.
I've played it and I've talked to you about it a little bit, but I've not watched any videos about it. I know very little about what the actual controversy is, what the full controversies are about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say, based on my little knowledge, that it, while I understand some of it, it's also kind of ridiculous
Mm-hmm.
because
Definitely.
I feel like it's not coming from the places that it should be coming from.
I agree. And I think most importantly, death threats are ridiculous.
Mhm.
I hate that that's still a trend that people are going through. I was so proud of us when we stopped the console wars, because now every time that I see someone like write something derogatory about a certain console, everyone's like, "Stop being a child. You're being stupid.
Mhm.
Stop." But now we've shifted to being like, "Oh, this person played a character I didn't like. I'm gonna start sending them death threats."
Oh, I feel so bad for Laura Bailey.
Definitely.
She's such from like I've the only experience that I've had with her is the very little bit of Critical Role that I've watched.
Mhm.
Um, but she's like the nicest person that I've seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate that people take the character and juxtapose it directly onto the not juxtapose. They line up the person with the
Yeah.
person that plays the character with the character.
They associate that
They,
person with the character.
yeah, thank you. That's the
Mhm.
word
No
that I was looking for.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think getting into the outrage is a whole other subject about like why the outrage is a thing. So I guess let's go into that, Chris. What did you think about the game? Did you like it? Was it the best game of the year? Was it the absolute worst thing you've ever seen? Is it absolute trash? Will it be better than Bug Snacks?
Um, I don't know if anything could be better than Bug Snacks. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, and I don't think it's as good as the first game. I'll be honest. Because the first game is just it's the original, and it's hard for the sequel to surpass the original, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But I did. That's not to say that I didn't like it. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was very ballsy. Some of the things that they pulled in this game. They're very bold narrative decisions
Yeah.
that we will get into, and I think through it all, and through the criticism that they eventually got, they did the right thing, and they did some great work with
Mhm.
this story of this game.
Yeah, I love this game. I agree with you. I don't think I like it more than the first game. But like I don't know if I could love anything more than the first game. I think the first game is just the perfect little little sandwich. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
This game to me is a meal, right? But Naughty Dog perfected the sandwich, and now they're adding all these like, appetizers and accoutrements to it, and it's like it's a lot to take in. Um, but I think that the meal that they offered us was exquisite, and I and I enjoyed every little bit of it.
Mhm.
Some things were like a little surprising to, at first, and I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I like this decision."
Yeah.
But they were consistently bold, and the boldest thing that they did was to kill off Joel Miller in the first 2 hours of the game.
Yeah. I was not expecting that whatsoever.
I
I'm gonna
was.
be
I got
honest.
that spoiled for me.
Oh
I didn't.
yeah.
I thought that was gonna be towards the end though, so it was shocking. Like and like when the scene was happening, I was like, "There's no way. There's no
Mhm.
way. He's in the rest of the game. There's no way that he dies." And when he died, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a whole other direction."
Yeah. The thing I watched the last time I watched any of the trailers was like senior year with you in
Hmm.
the library during one of our free periods.
Yeah.
So I had a very low knowledge of what was going to happen, but
Hmm.
I did remember the only thing I remembered was a conflict where like Ellie and Joel were fighting.
Hmm.
And so I was thinking, because we hadn't, when we got to that scene, I was like, oh, that hasn't happened yet. So he's making it out of this.
Hmm.
And then he didn't, and I saw where that came in later. But I was I was not expecting that, especially so early.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting Joel to be with us for the rest of the story, and to have Ellie and Joel deal with whatever their conflict was throughout
Hmm.
their adventure, and for him to like eventually die, and that to be his like redemption arc,
Hmm.
basically in Ellie's mind. But that didn't happen. I mean, it didn't happen in the way that we saw it, and that was probably one of the biggest criticisms that from people. And I also would like to mention a lot of people who do criticize this game did play it, but a good amount of them as well just saw the leak or just read about the leaks and then immediately wrote the game off.
Hmm.
And I saw that in comments. People were like, "Oh, I didn't even play the game, but I'm glad that I saved $60 on this absolute piece of trash." Um, so that's the whole other discussion I'm very passionate about as well. But do you think that they treated Joel unfairly? Do you think that this was a bad way to kill him off? Do you think this was a betrayal of the character?
Um, Not exactly. I think it's unfortunate that he did not go through more of the game as who he was,
Hmm.
but I think it was better that he did
Yeah.
because it was more important to the story of him and of Ellie and Abby that he died
Yeah.
to because that allowed Ellie to find herself and to gain an understanding and to right the wrongs within herself and to figure out her relationship with Joel better. Um, and it made Abby realize a lot of things about herself as well. And so I think it was unfortunate, but it was necessary.
Definitely. I definitely wasn't like, yes, Joel died, like, let's go. I definitely ended the last game not thinking that he was necessarily the villain, but also thinking that he wasn't exactly the best person in the world. I think he's a human, if that makes
Hmm.
any sense. And so I understood why he died, and I can very easily see Abby's side of the situation. Like, she not only did he kill, like, end the chance that there could be a cure for the rest of the world, right? And
Hmm.
this for the cordyceps, but also he killed her dad, and that's Ellie's whole push to go on her quest anyway. And I think the whole game is about showing that deep down there is not that many differences between these two. These two are kind of the same people depending on how you look at it. Everyone is in this gray area of being human and not the good guy or the bad guy. Um, and I think that Joel died in a very human way, if that makes any sense. He wasn't this amazing like shootout where he like sacrificed himself, or even where like I don't know, it was like a victorious like yes, he's finally dead. It was like kind of humiliating, but it
Hmm.
was also kind of real, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like it. I like how it. Let me reword that. I don't like how it happened,
Mhm.
but I like how it happened.
Yeah,
I feel like it really got the point across. It really was the desperation and the pain, and you could really understand it better than if it was written in any other way.
I agree. And so, what do you think about Ellie's whole journey? So let's talk about like Seattle's day 1 through 3, the first time. What did you think about her journey?
I don't know. See, should I, is it time for my hot take?
Oh
I
yes,
think it's
Chris has
time
had
for
a
my
hot
hot
take
take.
that he hasn't told me about. That he's been saving it for like weeks now. So I'm excited to hear what your hot take is. Go ahead.
So I liked her. I always like playing as Ellie.
Hmm.
I like her as a character, but I found playing as Abby in the second half,
Hmm.
I found her character to be more compelling, which which I know is blasphemous, but I don't know.
Chris, I agree with you. I agree with you tenfold.
Oh, cool.
I think Abby's story is significantly more engaging and entertaining. I think it was purposely done that way.
Mhm,
I think because Abby was made out to be the villain or the bad person in the very beginning of the game, the developers intentionally gave her a more fulfilling arc in her first section,
mhm,
and they gave her these cooler set pieces, right? Like the Rat King fight
mhm.
is like top notch. The burning of the Seraphite home, what was it called?
Haven.
Haven. That was like, gorgeous. Like it was sad, but it was also like
Like
it
when
was
you see it, when you're going there after, you see it through the window, and
it's
like from
stunning.
afar.
And
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, that stuff is going down over there. And and I guess I guess I'm gonna go towards Abby's story some more, even though I want to get to that more later. Um, I loved her relationship with Lev and Yara and her struggle to find peace with her dad's death and her nightmares that she was having.
Yeah.
And I think that Ellie's story is at the like I do enjoy her dynamic with Dina, and I like all their small conversations were all very interesting to me. I loved hearing about like Dina's uh uh feelings with religion and all of Ellie's stories from back when she was in Boston, back when she was in Boston. I thought those were all like fun and engaging, but it felt first off it felt like separate from what we were doing. It didn't feel like important to this whole revenge mission, but then
Mhm,
also it was like the story, like at that point the story was just about revenge, and that's not that engaging to me. I don't really like I of course I understand why she's going on this quest, and like I feel for her and her struggle, but there's no depth. There was no depth originally in that, if that
mhm.
makes any sense.
Yeah. It was just I'm going to kill this person who killed Joel
Exactly.
because I have complicated feelings about Joel. Like she writes in her journal. Um,
Hmm.
do I understand why he did what he did? At one point, I don't remember where it is, but
Yeah.
uh, she's just going on a quest because someone that she cares about, who really cared about her, has been killed, and she
Hmm.
has the capacity to get revenge. So she's going to get revenge against everyone involved because that's how it has to happen. It's
Yeah.
not, oh, I don't know.
I,
It's I don't
Go
know.
ahead.
Yeah, like you said, it's not as it's more two dimensional.
Exactly.
Is the
And
reason.
at least it initially presents itself as two-dimensional. And I think I don't want to get here quite yet, but like the moment that we switch perspectives is when it becomes more fleshed out. And I could already see the burgeonings of the idea of, ooh, is she really on the right? Because like obviously that's what they're going to go into. But at that point in the story, it hadn't presented that side of the narrative, so I didn't want to like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I didn't want to give it the credit because it hadn't done it yet. My favorite part of Ellie's story or her side were the flashbacks, though. I think that it gave me a lot of Left Behind vibes
Hmm.
of like these smaller packages of these cute short stories that weren't all about scavenging and action and fighting, and more about the relationships and like the story that was going on.
Hmm.
I of course loved the museum section, which was like the most wholesome thing I've ever seen in a video game. Then that moment where they're in, like, of course I love the hat of Sora. That's hilarious.
Oh,
But
every single dinosaur had a hat. Don't you
yeah.
worry.
But of course, my favorite moment was when they're in the spaceship, and it was just that like really touching moment between like a father and his daughter, and it was just sweet, and I don't know, it was cute.
Yeah, I agree. The flashbacks were one of my favorite parts to play through. And one of the things, not to entirely change the subject, but I love the flashback at the hospital where she goes back to Salt Lake City
Hmm.
to figure out the truth about what happened with the Fireflies.
Yeah.
And she goes into the office and she finds these brain scans of her written on it. And
Hmm.
then later you see Abby walking into the same office, and those are her father. This is her father's office, and this is where he pleaded with Marlene to let it happen, and that was his handwriting. And just kind of, I think, they allowed for everything to kind of mesh together really well.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, and I think throughout the game there are so many parallels that are drawn between people and their stories, like obvious and like the small connections. Like because there's a connection between like um Joel, not Joel, Abby and Ellie. They're both out to avenge the death of their father figure. That's obvious. But then you see the connections between Abby and Joel, because Abby takes on this role of a caregiver to these children who she's initially not sure about. She doesn't necessarily want to protect at the beginning. That's
Mhm,
exactly what Joel did with Ellie. And then you see the connections with Ellie and Joel, how she imitates Joel's darker side, like, and you see a lot with the map and pointing, like, when she tries to recreate you point to where it is on the map, and then you tell me where it is, and if you guys don't point at the same thing, I'm gonna kill you, because
mhm.
obviously you guys are lying to me. Um, and then even like the smaller detail of whenever she's on her last quest in where was it? Not It's not San Diego, is it?
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara, and she gets impaled on her side, which is like a parallel to when Joel falls onto like the big sharp thingy at the end of the fall chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course and I wish so my another complaint I have about the story is I wish there were more narrative, like, or more like linear connections in their stories. So like more stuff that was happening like on Ellie's day one that we would then see on Abby's day one or something.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that those stories were more connected in that way. They weren't too much. There was the one example that I saw of how Abby turns off the power or turns on the power in the bottom of the basement. And
Mm-hmm.
so when Ellie is down there in the basement, the power is also turned on. One of the guards shouts, "Why is the power turned on?" And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I didn't put the connection together until I saw a video. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I haven't watched, like I said, I haven't watched any videos, but I didn't notice that. I
yeah,
like, I, that I agree with. It's weird that they run so separately, even though they're in the same place at the same time, which I guess is kind of how the real world works. Um, but it would be nice to see more than just, hey, there's what, outsiders? What do they call them? What do the wolves call Tommy and Ellie?
oh, do they call them something? I don't remember. Probably outsiders. I don't know.
Trespassers.
Okay, trespassers.
So all you hear is the trespassers at the school and trespassers wherever, but you don't hear that until like the end with
Yeah,
Abby. So it's just kind of like an in passing thing. And their
definitely.
stories don't really cross at
Hmm.
any points, except for like you said, she's right behind her,
Yeah,
or Ellie is right behind Abby,
yeah,
a lot of the time. So I don't know.
definitely. I guess I want to ask you about what your feelings were about playing as Abby. How did the switch feel to you? Like, were you surprised about the switch? Were you at first apprehensive about it, or what?
I wasn't surprised exactly, but I was apprehensive.
Hmm.
I think I texted you as soon as I started in the first Abby flashback. Oh, do I really have to understand the villain's motivations now? I hate that. And then as it kept going, and as we went through more and more and saw the flashbacks, and got to know her character and saw her interact with the people around her and the world around her, and Yara and Lev and Owen and Mel.
Hmm.
Um, Even though her relationship with Owen and Mel was not,
The
it was
cleanest.
all kinds of weird. Um, I thought that her story was so well done that it really made up for it really entirely changed my perspective on her
Hmm.
from playing through as Ellie the first half.
Definitely. So at first I was upset because it killed the pacing of the game. I felt because like all of a sudden you're at this moment of high tension because Abby's there with a gun to Ellie's head. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And then you snap 3 days, or I guess 2 days before, and you're like, oh, I have to play through everything again to get up to that moment. And not only that, but like all my upgrades are gone now, and I have to like start from ground one basically, build up the second character. um, and it kind of felt like resetting the game. And I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then once I got into the flow of things and once I started like really getting into her story and what was going on and her relationships with everyone, and I really enjoyed all of the characters that we saw, even
Mhm.
though some people disagree. I enjoyed the melodrama with her, Owen and Mel, and then I got to see a side of Nora that was interesting. I got to see Manny, and he was really fun. I loved his affinity for watching anime and just having a fun time with the boys.
Yeah.
Um,
Get
and
drunk and watch anime.
exactly, and I and again, like I already said, I enjoyed her character, and I think the story really, really started to change when I had to like analyze, oh, I killed this person as Ellie, and I was kind of like, ooh, let's do it, right? Like let's go get them.
Mhm.
I think the moment that was the most shocking to me was whenever I went into the aquarium for the last time as Abby, and I was walking through, and I saw Alice, the dog, dead on the floor, because I remember that when I first played it, and as Elias, I dropped down to the into the in the aquarium, and the dog jumped at me. I was like, "Oh, let's get that!" And I was like, "Okay, good. Don't have to deal with dogs anymore. I hate dogs. Like, I'm so tired of dogs in this game. Like, this is good." But then, like, I had to like think about it. I was like, "Wait, I that was a dog that I had played with, and that like was like a big bonding moment for me and Yara." And like, this is really sad that I kind of just like happily killed this dog.
Mhm. It's it really makes you think about how it is. It's the enemy is not just because someone is shown in opposition to someone else does not mean that they're necessarily a bad person, a villain, an enemy constantly.
Mhm.
Like like that moment makes you realize maybe Ellie is the bad guy in this
Mhm.
situation. Ellie is so angry at what Joel has or what Abby has done to Joel
Mhm.
that she essentially becomes Ellie and like not Ellie. Ellie becomes Abby and
Mhm.
just goes on this massive revenge mission and takes it to a whole nother level and is just killing everyone she can. She's trying to kill everyone that was in the room,
Yeah.
not just Abby, everyone who's involved. And she's just I don't know. I
Mhm.
it's a very big perspective change.
I think digging into, Abby's side and like looking at Abby, I think it's really harkens back to the quote from Wreck-It Ralph of like I forget exactly how it is, but it's like Zangief says it. He was like, "You may be a bad guy, but you're not a bad guy,"
Mhm,
and that makes any sense. And I think that kind of is what everyone in this world is. I think they're all bad guys in someone else's eyes, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad guy necessarily. You
mhm,
know what I mean? They're not these people who are out to just like cause, turmoil and chaos in the world. They're out there to everyone's out there to like avenge love,
mhm,
really, which we would all say is like favorable things. But to do that, they are killing people who have all these other connections. And
mhm,
so they're turning into the things they hate. And I find that very interesting and very compelling.
yeah,
But now that we're looking at all of this, I think the moment where this all comes to a head is the theater fight,
mhm,
which was one of my favorite and least favorite moments of the game.
mhm,
Um, I loved it because it forced us to play as Abby, as the protagonist in this moment, and fight against Ellie, who was the villain, right? Because I mean that's how we see it through Abby's eyes and through the eyes of the story that we just played. Um, and it was so powerful to have to fight her, but it also was heartbreaking at the same time because there was the moment that really got me was when Abby was like strangling Ellie, and like Ellie's eyes were like bulging out, and you could see that she was struggling to breathe, and that she was like about to like die and run out of breath. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna kill this character who I love and who I really care about. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't want, and it makes you keep hitting square. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to stop. But I was like, if I stop, then I have to do it again. Like this, the way the story is going. And so it was, and then of course there's like the really hard moment where Abby is like about to kill Ellie. Dina jumps on her, and then she's about to kill Dina, and Ellie tries to plead about Dina being pregnant, and it's harkening back to the Martha moment in Batman v Superman, where they had that one connection of like the pregnant woman, and the mothers with the same names. But then, unlike that moment, Abby is like, I don't care that she's pregnant. That makes it even better, and it's better to
Yeah,
get revenge that way.
good.
Yeah. Um, and I don't know, it was just a very intense and very poetic moment, in my opinion.
Hmm. I agree. I think it's that fight. I think is one of the that fight, and then the one at the very end. I think are the two most interesting to me
Yeah.
because it's very similar,
Hmm.
but they feel entirely different. I think
Yeah,
now that I'm thinking about it,
me
because
too.
think about that fight. Ellie is the villain. Ellie, through your eyes, is the villain in
Hmm.
this playthrough, in this timeline.
Yeah.
You're playing as Abby, fighting against your continual enemy who's been killing your friends pretty consistently throughout
Hmm.
throughout your time in Seattle.
Yeah.
Um, and you're just even though like it's hard for us to do because it's a character that we know and love that we do
Hmm.
not want to kill. Um, but really, it's entirely understandable. But by the time you get to not to skip ahead, but by the time you get to the final fight where you're playing as Abby or as Ellie against Abby, there's no motivation. I did not feel like I'm fighting my enemy anymore.
Yeah.
I felt like I'm just beating up on a person who's just trying to survive and get out of here with someone that they're trying to protect. It's like if I was playing as Marlene at the end of the first game, just trying
Hmm.
to stop. Well, with less motivation, I guess. I would feel more motivation as Marlene to stop them. Never mind.
Hmm.
Forget that I said that.
No,
But
yeah.
I feel like it really, playing as Abby throughout the entire game, entirely, if we hadn't played as Abby and had just gone to that,
Hmm.
I would have been more compelled to just fight and kill Abby.
Yeah. And
But after playing as her, I couldn't. I felt really bad to do it. Like even the cuts. There's the time when she's on the ground and you have to hit square to strike, like you
hmm
do in to just kill people earlier.
yeah, to
And I was
Nora
like,
too.
it's like I'm not gonna. I don't want to do that. So I didn't, and then
Hmm.
I had to do it anyway. I had to do it again anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just it's such a it's very. I feel like that fight was even harder. I don't
Hmm.
know if like for me to personally do, if that makes sense. I don't know
Yeah.
if you felt anything like
Um,
that.
not exactly. I mean, so like, I do enjoy Abby's character, and I do love her character. But I was definitely more in it in Ellie's storyline and what she was going through at that moment. And what really made the fight sad for me was I was like, this isn't how you're gonna get satisfaction through
Hmm.
this. And you had this wonderful life with Dina and JJ back on the farm, and the way that they structure that moment is like the end of like a lot of not, or at least the end of like Uncharted 4, right? It's like the slower moment when you're walking and everything's peaceful and quiet, and you're kind of like going looking at relics, right? It builds that moment as the end of the game, right?
Hmm.
But then of course Tommy comes in, and he wrecks the ending, um, and he keeps the game going. some more. And I was like, Ellie, by doing all this, not only are you killing this character that I love, you're killing yourself.
Mhm.
You're losing yourself, like the song says, that she and Joel sing throughout the game. Um, and it was sad to see this character become so desperate for help and for sanity and for peace of mind that she has put herself on this destructive path.
Mhm.
That is what made the fight so difficult for me. Also, I don't like Naughty Dog's endings for video games. Um, from a gameplay perspective, I just think that I think that reducing it to a melee fight, and I understand that it's like the more cinematic way to end games, um, but it doesn't incorporate the things that we had learned throughout the gameplay, like of before, and it kind of just introduces this new means of fighting,
Mhm.
which I think isn't lazy exactly, but it's not the best ending from a gameplay perspective, but it is good from a narrative perspective and a cinematic perspective, just not from you know gameplay.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, I did. I did enjoy the fight. Well, no, I didn't enjoy the fight. I enjoyed it as like a narrative
Yeah.
work and to like analyze it that way. The moment that really makes the fight for me at the very end of the game
Mhm.
is her flashback to Joel and seeing Joel. Like it's only a moment, right? And it's like him playing the guitar on the porch.
Mhm.
Um, and she stops fighting. And you're like, oh, what is her peace of mind? What does she find? Is she just like love is more important than violence right now? Um, but then it kind of is what it is. She learns forgiveness, and like we go back and we finally get that closure on Joel's arc, where you know Joel is like, I would do what I did a second time if the Lord gave me a chance, basically. And it's not redeeming him for the bad thing that he did, but because we know his story, we understand why he did it, and I don't think that we can necessarily fault him for doing it. And we see Joel and Ellie finally have this really touching moment where it seems like things were going to be okay, um, eventually, and it it is satisfying in that way, but it also is even more heartbreaking because we know that she didn't have that chance,
Mhm.
and that's why Ellie probably feels so forced to go into this revenge mission because she felt like she missed out on her chance to have a normal life with Joel again. Like they were so close to like being able to sit down and watch bad movies
Mhm.
together, but it's all
But
gone.
by the next night, literally by the next night after
Yep,
that flashback, he was dead,
exactly,
and the chance is gone.
exactly.
I thought that was where the game was gonna end actually during
With
that
her,
flashback
oh, you thought that the
because
flashback was going to be the very, very end?
throughout that it had the in the background is the same guitar part that plays at the very end of the first game
Mm-hmm.
as Ellie says okay, and then the
Yeah.
game ends. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same music running behind the flashback.
Okay,
So I was like,
interesting.
oh, are we gonna end with them too?
Mm-hmm.
Because she says okay and then says goodbye.
Yeah.
And then she says okay, and I was like, is that the end? And then she
Mm-hmm.
said goodbye, and I was like, oh, is there something else after this?
Yeah.
Are they not gonna end it on exactly the same note that they ended the first one on?
Mm-hmm.
And then they kept going, and then we
Yeah.
had I think that was before the epilogue, and then we did the epilogue.
Yeah. I think it was, well, the epilogue. So I think the flashback was in the middle of the epilogue, right? Like I think that you went through the empty house
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah,
you
it
saw the
was.
flashback, and then you see her walk into the distance. And so I guess I want to know, what do you think about how the game ended? Like, how do you feel? Like, do you think that it's sad ending? Do you think it's a happy ending? Do you think it's the deserved ending?
I think it's an ending. I think the thing is, it's Ellie has reached this point where she realizes that it seems like she realizes that what she did was not what she should have done.
Hmm.
It was she took it too far, and she both literally and metaphorically lost a piece of herself.
Yeah.
Um, and when she goes to play the guitar, she has lost that part of Joel. She doesn't, in trying to avenge him, she's lost this part of him that she used to have because she
Hmm.
can't play the guitar anymore because she's missing. two of her fingers.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like in trying to, I think it's that as a message. It's important to realize that in trying to avenge someone, you are in effect taking a piece of their memory away, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. You're changing their memory and removing a part of it and replacing it with this fact, with all the pain and the anger and whatever.
Yeah, and I think we see that throughout with her not being able to draw Joel's eyes, right? Like Joel, I think throughout the game was no longer this sign of love for her. It was a sign of revenge and remembering that awful moment that she saw. That she was never able to replace that with a peaceful, calm memory.
Hmm.
Really, at least until the very end, I believe. Um, and whenever she puts down the guitar, I saw that. I don't know about what you think, but I saw that as the way of putting those darker sides of herself to rest and putting and like still holding on to Joel, but putting away the bad things that she learned from Joel down and
Hmm.
stepping away from that and stepping towards a life of love and peace and trying to care for herself
Yeah,
more.
I agree. I think while I find the ending to be very open,
Mhm.
which I always have problems with. I don't like things being open.
Mhm.
It's just a thing by me. It's because I want to know what happens.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens next. I want there to be a very satisfying conclusion with no possible way that anything else happens. Everything's tied up in a neat little bow, but that's
Mhm.
not how things work in the real world. They leave it
Yeah.
so open.
Mhm.
Um, that I I I I see why it's the way that it is because the
Mhm.
world is entirely ahead of her now.
Yep.
She's left behind this painful part of her past, or yeah, she's left it behind, and she is now going out to do whatever it is that she chooses to do. She can do whatever she wants. There's
Yeah.
infinite possibility.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, if right now you had a button, right? Neil Druckmann came over to you, handed you a button that says launch Last of Us Part 3. Would you hit that button?
Um, no.
No.
It's like we talked about this a little bit, but after you played the first game, you didn't want a second game, but you appreciated it.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is, this game, she's unless they're going to introduce entirely new characters, which they
Mhm.
should not do in a third installment of a series.
Yeah.
Um, we sh- this conclusion is so important. It's gone to the point where even if the actions aren't conclusive necessarily,
Mhm.
the people have reached a conclusion for themselves.
Yeah.
Ellie is in a state where she is okay.
Mhm.
Tommy will be, when he finds out what happened, he will hopefully be in a state where he's okay. Dina and JJ and Maria and everybody will be in a state where they're okay. Abby's with Fleb, so she'll be okay. So I feel like we've reached this point where everything is in balance again
Mhm.
and everything is okay. I've said okay a lot. But the
Yeah.
point is, we're at such a good point right now
Mhm.
that it's not like at the end of The Last of Us 1, where Ellie is in this position where she doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know if she can trust Joel or not. She doesn't know what actually happened. And Joel is trying to just protect her and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of we're at like a big story conclusion point.
Yeah. From my perspective, I think that having a sequel or anything that involves Ellie in the story is in complete contrast to the themes of this game and the meaning of this game. I think that, we see how our actions have consequences and how, turning towards the dark will result in loss for others, but then loss for yourself too.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that it's important that we see that Ellie has definitely lost things. I think that showing her gaining stuff at the very, very end, like I guess like deep down we all hope that she like finds love again, and that she finds a family, she finds community. She finds something, right? But I think seeing that for sure would just invalidate everything that we just played through and experienced in this game.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that we are left on this real moment where it's like Ellie could walk, through the woods and die later on in the game and like never win exactly. But now we know that she is in a better mental place and she better understands how her actions affected the world around her and resulted in the death of so many people and Tommy's injuries and her loss of Dina and JJ. And
Mhm.
I think it's important that we leave on this bittersweet note.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
I think the game implies but I do think the game implies that she is better off now and that she's
Mhm.
going to be okay on her own. Even if it's not great, she's going to be okay, like you said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of sad, but I think this is a great spot to end this very, very long podcast, Chris. Thank you so much for talking to me about this game that I have been sitting on and thinking about for almost a month now and waiting for like what 3 years now.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was a fun time. It was good to finally dissect it with you.
Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And so to all of our people watching, if you want to keep up with Project Geek content, tell us, Chris, where they can find it.
You can follow us on Instagram at Project Geek Official and on Twitter at Project Geek 2.
And make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon if you want to get more. If you want to, help us out, hit us up with a like, write a comment down. Hopefully, we'll get back to you on your feelings about this game, or any questions you have, or anything like that, or any suggestions you have. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching. This is Project Geek, logging off.